I'm here at Burning Man, and I regret every choice that led me here. The heavy rain that swept through the area has turned the place into a muddy nightmare. Thousands of us are now trapped in the middle of nowhere, and it feels like literally nobody is trying to help. We've just been told to stay in place, like we have a choice. It's becoming increasingly challenging to stay sane. The entire place is caked in mud, making movement almost impossible. Our campsite is now a soggy patch of dirt. The portable toilets, which were never a delight to begin with, are pretty much impossible to use, and people have started using random mud holes as bathrooms. I can't help cringing at the conditions we're enduring. What's even more unsettling than the weather and the lack of sanitary facilities is the behavior of a lot of the men here. This place has always had a problem with boundaries. Implied consent is what comes to mind. Like the kind of implied consent when you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean and you're scared of what might happen if you say no. Unwanted touching, groping, and outright assault seem to be on the rise. It's incredibly disheartening to see how some individuals here struggle to respect personal boundaries. I've lost track of the amount of times I've said I don't like to be touched, but it often falls on deaf ears. Just last night, I was cornered by some weirdo. The other two guys were distracting my male friend who'd been protecting me all night. They were laughing and joking with him and grabbing his attention whilst their friend was pushing me up against the wall and touching me up. Literally 2 meters away from my man. These same people will call themselves allies, but the second they get the chance to take advantage of a vulnerable woman, they'll do it. I shouted my friend over the loud music and he finally saw what was going on, but it didn't stop the guy from repeatedly pulling my wrist, trying to drag me away. I hate it here, and the most recent news is that there's more rain coming. I don't get how we're supposed to survive this. The conditions are terrible. Some people are partying as if nothing is happening, and others are having complete meltdowns and acting like it's the apocalypse. The guy who'd been trying to pull me away last night has followed us back and knows where I'm staying now, and I'm terrified he's going to suddenly show up in the middle of the night. It's crazy how fast this place went from civilized, peaceful party vibes to seriously hostile. This happened last night around midnight. The first night after the storm. The neon glow and pulsating lights that once lit up the desert have all vanished into the darkness. The wind, charged with moisture from the recent downpour, painfully whistles through the place and feels like a cold slap when it hits you. Most folks have retreated to their camps, seeking refuge from the relentless rain and the now pitch-black desert. You can hear the soft patter of raindrops hitting tents and the faint rustle of tarps flapping in the wind. The power's out, and you can't even charge your flashlight. It's like a scene straight out of a post-apocalyptic movie. The only source of light is the occasional flicker of LED-lit costumes passing by, or someone trying to find their way through the mud with their phone flashlight. Someone with a speakerphone kept repeating that we should stay put and secure our stuff, especially anything electrical. The storm had messed up everything, the lights, the music, you name it. Most people just waited in their tents or RVs hoping that the mud would dry or that supplies would make their way to us. Out in the dark, someone stumbled past my tent, muttering something about getting the lights back on. They disappeared toward where the generators were. It's safe to assume that almost everyone you come across here is under the influence of something, so I assumed he was just talking to himself. I heard his wet footsteps fading into the distance, but then I could definitely hear him trying to start the generator. Suddenly there was a scream that echoed through the area. People nearby were shouting and trying to figure out what had happened. The screams were periodic, like he was in a lot of pain and begging for help. We could just hear him screaming repeatedly. Some people came out with flashlights, but even if they could find him, it took minutes to travel just a couple of meters through the thick sludge. It was deep and impossible to walk through without serious effort. Your foot would sink immediately, making it exhausting to get through. Eventually people got to him and I heard a lot of commotion. Apparently he managed to turn the generator on, but was stood in a puddle of water. It doesn't take a genius to know that electricity plus water is a bad combination. We don't even know if he's alive. Multiple people got caught in the electrified water trying to save him. Last I heard is that he was in one of the medical tents, but we've been hearing rumors all day that he died and someone else had a heart attack. I came to Burning Man with a group of friends. They're not the smartest bunch, but they're adventurous and always up for a laugh. After the rain stopped, people were panicking, trying to make a break for it before things got worse. Dozens of people started trying to drive out or walk back to the road. But I don't need to tell you that they didn't get very far. The mud and water ensured nobody got more than a few hundred meters. My friends thought they had a better idea. Instead of joining the frantic crowd heading towards the road, they thought it was smarter to go in the opposite direction, believing it was drier that way. I tried to convince them to follow the official advice. We had an emergency message come through. Do not drive your vehicle. Do not ride your bike. Do not push your bike around. Remain where you are. Secure structures and belongings in your camp. Don't operate generators or other electrically powered instruments that are standing in water. Cover or secure anything electrical. Check on your campmates and neighbors to make sure they're okay and help them as needed. Take advantage of a moment of calm to connect with campmates and hunker down. Stay safe out there, Black Rock City. They didn't want to listen to me about it being a bad idea and thought I was just being soft. But I've been around this kind of mud before. I know how exhausting it is to try to get through it and how dangerous it can be to become dehydrated without shelter in the middle of the desert. They left without me. Their map told them it was a 3-hour walk to the road in the opposite direction. They didn't believe me when I told them that it would be dark by the time they could even see the road, because the mud would easily cut their walking speed in half. I watched them the whole time, slowly trekking through the mud. After about 4 hours it started to go dark and I could no longer see them. They barely made it halfway to the road and now I could guarantee they couldn't see it. I tried calling them, but none of them had any signal. It was cold, and they were soaked in mud and likely freezing out there. There's another storm on the way. They're nowhere near the road and I can't get in contact with anyone who can even help. I called the cops and told them about the situation, but they said there's nothing they can do until morning anyway. They've already got their hands full. This whole situation is insane. I'm terrified that my friends are out there freezing to death. There's no way they suddenly managed to travel the remainder of the distance in the pitch black. I thought at one point that I saw an orange light in their direction, like a campfire or something, but the visibility here is really bad. I guess it'll be on the news in the next few days if they didn't make it. I can't sleep though. I have a guilty feeling of relief that I didn't go with them, but I also feel terrible for not trying harder to convince them.